This particular show, I'm going to talk about tipping point. Now, I have a story or a story song about it, but I wanted to talk about my particular tipping point. I suppose everybody's got one. Some particular event, a dream, a thought, an action, somebody doing something or not doing something that affects us for the rest of our lives. I was around 22 when I got out of Vietnam and I went to Hawaii. Um, it was I was on my way to Hawaii to fulfill a dream that I no longer had. The dream was to live on some South Pacific island, fall in love with a native lady there, and basically just live a peaceful, idyllic life. A grass shack sounded fine to me. Trouble is, I was a recovering Vietnam vet, and I was committed to peace, if peace were possible. And I didn't like to say that it was impossible. It was an assumption that didn't help me when it comes to caring. Now, if you remember right, I told you that all throughout Vietnam there were these Taylor Caldwell books. And Taylor Caldwell was exploring the idea that wealthy families encouraged war, and that it was a norm, and also that you could not really separate big business, organized crime, or the military industrial complex. It was all connected. Basically, if you wanted to be successful in one, you had to understand the connections of the others. I'm not saying it is, but I'm sure not saying it isn't. It did make me think, though. But this is what happened to me. I couldn't pursue my idyllic life on the South Pacific Sea Isle because I was feeling responsible. I had an idea that peace was possible, and I didn't want to give up on the idea that war was not inevitable. I didn't want to give up on that idea either. So I went to the University of Hawaii and I started studying international relations, war peace studies, anything that might lead in that direction. It became painfully obvious to me that there were just about three areas that you could deal with: international law, international business relations, or education. And I decided to focus on education. I was becoming an early childhood educator, basically exploring the idea that we can teach peace to young children. Don't forget, there were other theories that war was propagated by genetics, that it was programmed in us, or the other possibility that God was mad at us and therefore we had war, or that you combine all of them and try to have a solution that includes all the possibilities. It wasn't until many years later that I explored the possibility that we, as huge cosmic beings, created the wars out of boredom, out of the necessity of striving and achieving and conquering and being brave when there was no such thing as death, really. So we created these wars to have something to do, have somebody to love, so we could protect. As cosmic beings, we could watch over and guide the ones that had chosen to come on down to the planet and forget who they really were. Interestingly enough, it was the perspective that I was most comfortable with, not necessarily trying to push it, but I got to admit it made a lot of sense to me. It still does, I suppose. And therein lies the crux of the problem here. If we did it, if we're doing it, we can stop it, but we got to want to stop it. And we got to talk to our higher selves and say, no more. No more will humans hurt other humans so that we have something to do and something to care about. No longer will humans hurt the planet um, so that we have something to do, so we have goals to achieve, that we have projects that we want to accomplish. no longer will we be allowed to be totally ignorant as to who we really are. We have to become aware that part of us is part of the whole of the cosmic plan. It's the one I'm most comfortable with. And don't forget the purpose of this series is to encourage us to choose assumptions that most help us to deeply and honestly and actively care about ourselves, all others, the earth, and what's beyond the earth. So the assumptions that we make, whether they're fundamentalist points of view, whether they're sexist, whether they're it's a religious perspective, or whether it's a capitalistic or a communistic perspective, the question boils down to, does it help the individual to care, or does it contribute to disregard? And we can no longer allow our leaders to be those that embrace disregard. We can no longer be the leaders that embrace disregard. We have to embrace caring and choose leaders that embrace caring. So I had to kind of kiss off the whole idea of going to the South Pacific. Hawaii, the University of Hawaii, was as close as I could get to it. It didn't do me much good. I could have gone to the South Sea Island. I would have accomplished about as much as I ever did trying to teach peace. It's just the way it is. I'm not happy about it. But I'll tell you, it was interesting. I want to go to the tipping point business here. Imagine a young man, about 22, surviving the war. The whole focus was to get out of the whole mess and come back alive without too many psychological scars. And there I was. I had survived it. I was now 22 years of age. I was in Hawaii wearing cut-off jeans. I'd always put on my jeans, and by the day when it got to be around noon, I couldn't take it anymore, and I'd cut off the bottom of the pants, and I'd have shorts again. So I was my favorite sport at that time was snorkeling. I used to love to snorkel, to watch all the fish. But there I am. I'm standing in a convenience store, trying to. I mean, in essence, trying to figure out my next move, if you want to say that. And in front of me, a lady is checking out, and she's talking to the clerk. They don't know each other. It doesn't appear that they really. They're just a clerk and the customer. And they're talking about the prices, I think. And the one lady says to the other lady, "Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to start another little war so that we can keep the economy going." And the other lady agreed with her. Now, folks, this is in front of a young 22-year-old man who just basically survived fighting in a war. And the idea that I was fighting in that war so the economy can go and thrive. And that it was really the only real reason. It was horrible. It was devastating. And with that came a commitment that I would live as far outside of the economic system as possible. And I did for the longest time. I spent years without electricity. I lived, everything I did, it was free. I ran free stores. I taught in free schools. Um, I had a crash pad where it was free to stay there. I didn't know what else to do, and quite truthfully, I'm not very good at it now when it comes to making money and utilizing money very well. Now, if I had my way, I'd like to see a barter hotel where anybody can walk in, a lady with 5 kids or a person right off of the streets, and barter in exchange for nutritious food, clean showers, clean clothes, and a place to sleep that night. They can do a certain amount of work, maybe in gardens, maybe in recycling, I don't know. I think it'd be best if it was profitable. I'd like to see these barter hotels spring up all over the world, whether it's going to happen. And I'm 76 now. I'm beginning to lose energy, somewhat losing hope, I think. I'm not too sure any of these things can be pulled off anymore. I mean, my main goal is that 90% of us, the Earth's population, will at least be aware that we could, if we want to, choose assumptions that most help us to care. I don't know. That goal is for December of 2030, and it's pretty close. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'd like to see advertisements everywhere that says choose assumptions that most help you to care. I'd like to see it in the schools and the universities. I'd like to see it on Coca-Cola and on the um, and on products that are being advertised. I'd like to see it advertised on television and on the internet. Make assumptions that most help you to care. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. I ended up in Hawaii, and I didn't stay there very long um, because I got to thinking maybe we could create corporations that were owned by the people. That's kind of a communistic, socialistic perspective. But I was thinking maybe we wouldn't be so eager to have the wars where we send up our children when they were our children, making money and profit for us. It didn't do me any good. I never saw the people owned corporations get started or run. But it was a goal of mine. It was something I was focused on. And don't forget, the U.S. military had figured out the Marines had figured out that one, I was had grandiose ideas, delusions of grandeur, and two was a tad paranoid. My wife explained to me that the paranoia that I have is toward the system, and it's true when you stop to think about it. I'm worried that our system is designed upon being greased by war. It's a horrible thought, especially when the big businesses they don't want a World War III, but they may want little tiny wars where they keep producing all kinds of cool little weapons that can then be destroyed and recalibrated and used in different ways. And I don't know. I'm in a particular mood today, and I guess there's not going to be much time for a story today. But I did want you to know about the tipping point. That was the point for me. That conversation by a clerk and the customer and the teller, two strangers saying, I was awed. You mean to tell me all throughout the United States of America, people saw it that way? They saw the necessity of war so that the economy would be robust? I didn't know what to do. To this day, I really don't know what to do. Listen, you and your family, you have a good life. Not a life that is built on the necks of other people, but have a good life and believe in things that most help you to care. This is Storyteller Greg for show number 6, I guess. And I'll catch you later at another time. Goodbye.